Today we have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Hello, welcome to the Dynasty Vipers starts and sits for week number 4, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Joining me as always, we have our former College of the Canyons running back guru himself here, Major Caldwell, and we have the very feisty Tera Roberts, aka it's Tera time, coming at you this week for our starts and sits. We're going to talk about a start and a sit at each position: quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end. We're going to do this each and every week, but we're not going to give you the easy way out here. We're not going to give you the Josh Allens, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jacksons, Jalen Hurts. These guys, that's too easy to call a start on these guys. But I will, we won't be afraid to tell you to sit them if we think they need to sit down on your bench for a week or two. So without further ado, let's get into this, starting with the quarterback position. Major, who do you got starting this week at quarterback?
This week, I'm going Jameis Winston versus Minnesota. Jameis coming off a 25 for 353-yard passing game and a TD. But, you know, Jameis is going to be Jameis, and he's going to toss a couple interceptions in there. But he has a talent around him. But Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are both dealing with foot injuries. On the plus side, Jameis and his beat-up receivers is facing the 4th worst pass defense, giving up 276 yards per game. So look for Winston to put up some big numbers versus a weak Minnesota secondary. And for my sits, I'm going to go with Carson Wentz versus Dallas. Like, Wentz came back down to earth from a hot start in the first 2 weeks of the season versus a strong Philadelphia defense. Wentz only completed 25 of 43 passes for 211 yards and 0 touchdowns. And Dallas pass defense is ranked 4th, 2 spots higher than Philadelphia. So Carson, you know, may have to wait another week before he has a bounce back game.
Yeah, I'm in on Carson Wentz as well. I mean, we want to get in. I mean, he's going to be serviceable this week, but just don't expect anything huge when it's all said and done. Now, Tera, what do you got for us starting and what do you got for us sitting here in week number 4?
As the debate champion, I'm going to give you a fantastic option here, coming off of my victory. And we're going to start with Jared Goff. Jared Goff completed 25 passes for nearly 300 yards, a touchdown, and interception against Minnesota. That is not a fantastic stat line by any means, especially considering that we expected it to be a high volume game, which is why we were streaming him last week. But this is literally his floor. Like, that's it. That is the worst case scenario that you can get out of Jared Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown. That is the combination right there that guarantees that that is the level that he can produce. And it's not bad to have that floor when we've got such a sketchy quarterback position going on with a lot of these quarterbacks. We've got Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, these guys that are not putting up the numbers that we drafted them. They're not putting up the numbers that we wanted. And we've got injured players as well. So it's good to have streaming options that have a solid floor. And that's what Jared Goff gets you. And in week 4, he faces a Seattle defense that just gave up a pretty decent game to Marcus Mariota. Mariota threw for 229 yards on literally 13 passes. So this could be a very solid game for Jared Goff. My sit of the week, I hope it doesn't hurt your feelings, Matt. And my sit of the week is Derek Carr versus Denver. Now, again, you know, this is based off statistics, but full disclosure, it's, you know, these defensive statistics are a little tainted for Denver because they haven't exactly faced very tough competition. They had Geno Smith in week 1, they had Davis Mills in week 2, and they had Jimmy Garoppolo in week 3. So yes, defensively, they should have dominated those quarterbacks as they did. But again, you know, obviously very few defenses wouldn't struggle with that. But Denver's defense, in theory, this was a defense that should be incredibly tough. We've seen them do great things in the prior year. They were a defense that was touted as just, this is a team that's got the defense, the wide receivers, everything to be one quarterback away. So I think that they're going to be a strong matchup against Derek Carr. And that is why I would be sitting Derek Carr. I don't think this is going to be a fantastic matchup for him. And again, I think he's going to struggle, because it's been a struggle for Derek Carr, unfortunately.
Well, I got to hold out hope that Derek Carr bounces back here this week against the Denver Broncos. I mean, they really need this one probably more than any other team in the National Football League right now, considering where they're at and what they've kind of, the 8 ball they've kind of put themselves behind. But for me, I'm starting Russell Wilson. Now, this isn't because I believe in Russell Wilson. It's because I need to kind of put the kiss of death on him, because a lot of my starts last week, they didn't go over so well for me. So maybe I'll keep this momentum. It's kind of like shooting the moon here, where I'll put it out there. No, listen, sometimes you just have to hope and pray that you're wrong. I mean, I'm hoping I'm wrong with this. I think Russell Wilson is going to be a good start this week, but I'm hoping I am wrong, because despite Russell Wilson appearing to be Mr. Limited through the first 3 weeks, this Raiders defense is allowing 22.63 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position, including 265 yards passing to Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans last week. Tannehill had a rushing touchdown. Tannehill had a throwing touchdown there. So he was able to do a little bit of everything. Now, what I'm hoping for as a Raiders fan is Chandler Jones goes out there finally and earns himself a little bit of that money that he got paid in the offseason there, and does what he does best and gets after Russell Wilson, going back to their Cardinals versus Seahawks type days there. And maybe this is the first time that we see Russell Wilson not doing his impression of Donovan McNabb a la Washington days. I mean, so far, Russell Wilson in a Denver Broncos uniform has looked very similar to Donovan McNabb in a Washington Commanders uniform, I guess. I mean, it wasn't the Commanders back then, but you know what I'm trying to say. Now, for my sit of the week. Now, this one may be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford against the San Francisco 49ers. Hey, you don't tug on Superman's cape and you don't mess around with Jim. Well, Jim's defense is in Jimmy Garoppolo's defense there. San Francisco is allowing less than 10 fantasy points per contest through 3 weeks there. They've allowed just 509 passing yards. And again, these are tainted numbers for the San Francisco 49ers defense too, because they've faced Justin Fields, Geno Smith, and Mr. Limited himself there, Russell Wilson. So take that number as you will. In 2 regular season games last season, the 49ers and Stafford threw for about 240.5 yards per contest there, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Now, he did have a very good playoff game where he went 31 of 45 for 337 yards and 2 touchdowns. But guess what? This isn't the playoffs. So I'm sitting Matthew Stafford against the San Francisco 49ers in week number 4. Now, moving along to the I believe the running back position, Major. You're now on the clock here. What do you got for us? Who are you starting and who are you sitting?
I'm going to go with the league leader, league rushing leader, and Nick Chubb. He has a favorable matchup in a mid-tier Atlanta defense. Chubb is averaging 113 yards a game on 56% of the snaps, so he's using his time wisely. And the Browns will continue to lean on the running game, so Chubb and Hunt, for that matter, will have plenty of opportunity to run that rock. And then for my sit here, I'm going to go with Miles Sanders versus the league leading rushing defense in the Jaguars. That sounds crazy saying it, but Miles is having an okay season so far. It's been pretty quiet, but the first game he had 96 yards. The second game he had 80 yards. Last week he struggled a bit with 46 yards. And again, like I said, he's facing that number 1 rushing defense that the Jaguars is putting out on that field. And Hurts and those wide receivers will lead the way if they're looking to beat this rising Jacksonville team. I like what they're doing out there.
Yeah, I think Duval County in there, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're doing things right. I mean, they're a fun team to watch. You look at this, how much athleticism they have, especially in that second level there. You got Josh Allen, you got Trayvon Walker there, you got Foye Olakun there. I mean, there's some good linebackers that are going to make things very difficult for Miles Sanders in week number 4. Now, Tera, over to you here. Which running backs are you starting? Which ones are you sitting? Because the start of this week for you is controversial, in my opinion. Who do you got?
It is controversial, but like you said, I'm not giving up, gimmies. I'm not throwing up softballs. So I'm saying that I am starting Devin Singletary. Now, Last week was not pretty on the ground. Singletary had 9 carries for 13 yards, and according to Matt, that would make him a drop candidate, just like Austin Eckler at Matt's size. But Singletary did also have 9 receptions on 11 targets for 78 yards and a touchdown, which again is fantastic. But again, Matt doesn't believe in PPR, so I guess this is not the start for Matt, unfortunately. But for me, this is valuable in terms of his production and his involvement. It was fantastic to see Singletary get involved in the pass game beyond just the occasional dump off, because that is well within his skill set and he can be utilized in that way and help out Buffalo and help out our fantasy teams as well. And Singletary faces a shaky Baltimore defense. They've been struggling a little bit. They just gave up 12 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown and 4 receptions on 5 targets to who, Major?
I don't know.
Your boy? Ramondre Stevenson. I can't do it like you.
I don't want to hear you say it.
I can't do it like you. But, that was a fantastic turnaround for Ramondre Stevenson. I think we see that kind of continuation from Devin Singletary. And that's on top of the 11 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown and 2 receptions for Damian Harris. So Baltimore's kind of getting lit up, unfortunately. They, in their defense, they are dealing with some injuries and whatnot. But they got to pull it together. And I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it together quick enough for Devin Singletary to be stopped. So I think he's a very solid start this week. My sit of the week is going to be J.K. Dobbins. I just don't want people to get fooled into thinking that this is something that they can move into starting. We just have to be realistic when we think about J.K. Dobbins and his return off of such a significant injury. He returned to action this week, and it was fantastic. That's wonderful. Very happy to see him. 7 carries, 23 yards, 2 receptions, 17 yards. This is not fantastic, but it's expected. He's going to have to be eased back into it. He's not going to be highly productive right off the bat. And this is not a J.K. Dobbins look bad, and he's splitting with Justice Hill, who had 6 carries for 60 yards. It's just a reminder that, again, this is a significant injury, and he's not going to be thrown into aggressive volume. So you need to be careful. I just would not be starting him, especially when we consider that the real RB1 of the team is, in fact, Lamar Jackson. And it doesn't help that Baltimore is facing a Buffalo defense that this is just, you don't really want to attack them on the ground. So I'm not going to be playing J.K. Dobbins this week.
I'm with you on that one as well. I'm a big J.K. Dobbins kind of guy there, but you know what? I'm wait and see approach with him right now as far as it's concerned. Last time we saw him healthy, it was about 6 yards per carry average. He's not healthy yet. He's not 100%. That injury was a lot worse than we were led to believe way back when, or else he would have already been back in the lineup. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm also a big time believer. If you're going to put a graphic out there, you need to follow through on there. And if you've seen the thumbnail, this week we're featuring Jamal Williams. So he's going to be on my starts and sit, just like on Tera's graphic there where it says lost a debate again. I mean, the proof is right there on the show. I just want to point out that
that's so good.
We're very admin powers. He used admin powers. Okay, this is okay. It's a dictatorship now. I see how it is. It's a dictatorship.
So yeah, I'm going to go with Jamal Williams against Seattle. Now Williams, he shouldn't even be on waivers, but if for whatever reason he is on your waivers, he needs to be rostered. Whatever that fob is you have right now, you need to put it out there right now. If DeAndre Swift is going to miss time, which is probably a pretty good chance that he's going to miss time, Jamal Williams ascends to a top 12 running back week in and week out. He's actually been pretty good with Swift in the lineup so far as well. We know Swift is dealing with that shoulder injury. We know Dan Campbell talked about him potentially missing 2 weeks here just so he's healthy down the stretch. So we know what we're dealing with as far as DeAndre Swift is concerned. But we're not talking about the league leader in rushing touchdowns in Jamal Williams. His 4 are better than anybody else. And he is top 8 amongst running backs with averaging 15.9 fantasy points per contest. And I mentioned, if you watched the show a little bit earlier, we talked about that shoulder injury for Swift. He injured it first in 2019 there, the left side. Then in 2021, he got the right side. And now we are back to the left side. So even if he does return to the lineup this year, there's nothing to say he doesn't re-aggravate that shoulder injury, which is going to be at a high risk because the volatility of the running back position. Now, Don't worry, Tara. I still got admin power, so I can fix that later.
And the chair looks so happy when she did that. She was so proud of
I know,
herself.
it was like a little child's proud. Like it's like when you put your child's picture on the refrigerator. That's exactly the look that Tara gave there.
So
Now, my sit this week. Hey, you know what? Derrick Henry versus Indianapolis. I'm going to go to the well again here. First, another reason why I hate PPR. I want to get this off my back here. If you watched the first rant on the first show, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 8.9 fantasy points, 0 rushing yards. Edwards-Helaire, he was facing the same Colts defense last week that Henry faces this week. That gave him 0 rushing yards. Guess what? Derrick Henry, he doesn't catch the ball out of the backfield, so he's not going to get those PPR points. Now, in week 2, Indianapolis, they actually held James Robinson and Travis Etienne to about 84 yards on the ground. And in week 1, Dameon Pierce, we've seen what he's done since week 1. He was held to 33. So I get it. Not all backfields are created the same. And Derrick Henry is just not created like everyone else. But last time that Derrick Henry, he faced this Colts defense, he was held to 2.4 yards per carry on 28 attempts. So I'm playing the law of averages here. Indianapolis, they typically know how to play Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry, he still doesn't have any help anywhere else, which is probably good because Indianapolis, they can't really defend the pass. So they're going to be loading that box up for Derrick Henry all day long and going to make it very difficult for him to be productive this week. Now, moving along to, Tara's got a rebuttal.
Derrick Henry had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 58 yards.
PPR.
Congratulations. If you're in
that's an extra 10 PPR fantasy points. Math.
Those, yeah, exactly. It's horrible. 58 yards receiving, you get 5.8. It makes 0 sense.
You sound like an old
all the sense
man
in the
now,
world.
man.
You're right, man. He's like,
line.
hey, man, we need to take this back to standard leagues.
You know what? I think I've gotten I'm at that age right now where I think half PPR is probably where it's at. You still get a little bit of that reward for the PPR kind of people right there, right? I mean, you're still going to get reward some of those receptions, but they don't carry the same merit. I mean, I can get away with, hey, 2 catches, that's 1 point. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. But I mean, if you can literally catch 5 passes for -3 yards and still have 4 points. That makes 0 sense to me right now. That is why PPR is absolutely ridiculous for me. I mean, it's not, hey, PPR, half PPR, standard. It's not for everybody. Everyone's got their niche. But if you can have negative yardage and still have positive fantasy points, there's something wrong with that. There really is. Now, moving along to the wide receiver position where PPR is kind of important there. Major, who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
You got to start Mike Evans versus Kansas City. Tom Brady owes Evans for getting suspended, for setting up for him in that small little dust-up they had in week 2 versus New Orleans. And also, Tom didn't look like himself last week without Mike. So, Mike being reinstated, he's bringing his 8 catches, 132 yards, and a TD back to an offense that really missed him last week. And KC defense, pass defense, is giving up 253 reception yards per game. So look for Tom Brady to throw the ball. He should. If he lost all his street credit when he became the spokesman for Uggs, he's going to lose way more for not looking out for his boy after he beat some guys up for him and went to detention. So,
well, let's be honest. Mike Evans didn't need a whole lot of convincing to go after Marshawn Lattimore. There was very little convincing. He didn't even need any reason to go after him. He was going after him.
He went hard too. I was like, whoa, what are you doing? But hey, you gotta, people cry for their quarterbacks. Some people fight for their quarterbacks. That is what it is. For my sit, I'm gonna go with Allen Robinson versus San Francisco. I don't even know what's really going on with this disconnect between A-Rob and Stafford. But they really need to figure that out as soon as possible. Maybe one reason is, Stafford forcing the ball to Cooper Kupp every single play. But A-Rod is playing 93.6% of the snaps, but only accounting for 7 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown on the season. And San Francisco pass defense is at the top of the league, only giving up 167 yards per game. If you've been watching the Sunday show with me and Nick Script on Fantasy Points, we talk player props. I've been in the corner of Allen Robinson. I've been calling his name a few times, and he's been giving me some big fat L's over here. So I think I'm off that train now. I think there's, only one receiver in Stafford's eyes. So, you got to go with Cooper Kupp or nothing else on that offense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us had a lot of good things to say about Allen Robinson entering the season. He had that one good week, and after that, 2 out of 3 weeks haven't been very good for him. So I've always been, what have you done for me lately? If the production's not there, I got to put you on the back of the bench there until something starts happening. And that kind of hurts me with some of these other players we talk about. Darnell Mooney, that's one of my guys, but I can't start him at all until I see something come out of him. Now, Tara, who do you feel comfortable starting this week, and who are you sitting?
I am starting DK Metcalf, and it's crazy that that's even like a controversial do we start him, do we sit him kind of thing. But a lot of people might have benched DK Metcalf last week, losing faith in him and the connection with Geno Smith. And unfortunately, he missed out on a pretty decent game, his best game of the season, catching 5 of 12 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown. It's not exactly efficient, but hey, man, that's progress, okay? We want to see that. And I think that this bounce back continues against Detroit. Detroit just held Justin Jefferson in check, but they did give up big games to both KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen. So I think this is an opportunity where DK Metcalf can continue and be worthy of a start. For my sit of the week, this is not a reactionary sit to his week 3 performance, which was obviously abysmal, but that was underwhelming and disappointing. But again, what can you really do when literally almost 50% of the targets are going to Mark Andrews? You're doing the best you can over there. But I'm sitting Bateman because he is playing against Buffalo. We've talked about Buffalo, and yes, they've got some injuries on defense and especially in the secondary. But when we look at Buffalo last week, they held Tyreek Hill in check. I mentioned that on our last show where I won the debate against Matt. They held Tyreek to 2 receptions for 33 yards. Waddle did have a good game, but he had no touchdowns. So, he got PPR value right there, but are we really counting PPR? I don't know. We'll have to ask Matt. But again, I worry that this Tyreek Hill performance is going to translate over more towards Bateman than anybody else in that offense. So, if you have the ability to do it, I would just go ahead and sit this one out with Bateman.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Tyreek Hill up again because he's going for over 200 yards receiving this week. Put it down right now. He is going to light Eli Apple right up.
Matt wants to bet a pie to the face with that one.
I will put – who wants in on this? Who wants in on this? I'll put a pie to the face on the line that Tyreek goes over 200. Who wants some of this action?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Oh, I
won't be taking a pie to the face.
I want to see Tara take a pie to the face. I want Tara to lose.
Oh, it's a pie to the face either way. Hey, you know what, Tara? For someone,
pie in her face.
I can't get a good read on Tara. I mean, she's taking a shot at Waddle and taking shots at Hill, yet her name right now is hashtag Team Waddle and Hill. So
and but you know what? At least Matt didn't mute me yet. So, hey, I got that going for me.
It's coming.
So I'm going to go here for my start of the week, and it's probably one of the biggest boom and bust guys that we're going to see each and every week, and that's going to be Gabriel Davis. I think we've kind of got an idea of what we're expecting from him so far this season. He's going to give us something one week, nothing the next. And you know what? I'm okay with that as long as I can predict which week he's going to go off. And when you're playing the Baltimore Ravens, that's probably a pretty good indication of a week that a guy is about to go off. Look, you look at this. Davis, he had some drops last week that really hurt that stat line. 3 catches, 37 yards, no touchdowns against the Dolphins. Luckily, he and Diggs, they get a face-off against this Ravens secondary that they're so bad that even Devonte Parker produced 156 yards receiving on 5 receptions. Parker, he now has 165 yards in 3 games. So use that for all you will. I mean, 159 of his 165 yards came in one game. It came against the Baltimore Ravens, who everybody has taken to the woodshed and put a pretty good beating down on so far at secondary, which has some pretty big names. They just can't cover worth a lick. And I want to give a shout-out, honorable mention, Amari Cooper this week. Hey, you know what? We were down on him and Jacoby Brissett entering the season. He's put a couple good weeks together, and now he gets Atlanta. You could trust in Amari Cooper. I think he's like a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy right now. So you're going to continue to roll with him as well. Moving along here to my sit. It's DJ Moore. I don't even care who the Panthers are playing. I don't even have to look to see who Carolina is playing. I know I'm not going to start DJ Moore. That's where we're at right now. But he is playing against a team with a pretty good corner there, Byron Murphy there in Arizona, if you are keeping track of that. So the matchup is not very favorable for DJ Moore. It's definitely not favorable for Baker Mayfield is what we want to look at here. Now, Baker Mayfield, I guess we can officially give him wide receiver 1 fantasy killer stats. I mean, this guy shuts down more wide receivers than Darrell Revis did in his prime. I mean, that's where we're at with Baker Mayfield. Oh, I'll say it right now. Look, he had more yards rushing on 2 carries than he had on his receiving. He had 6 targets for, I think it was like 2 yards. Okay. I mean, DJ Moore needs to go and hire Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad to break down some film for him right now. I mean, that's where we're at right now. Through 3 games, look, DJ Moore he topped 1,100 yards receiving in 3 straight seasons. Each of those seasons, he saw at least 27% target share and a 30% air yard share there. Through 3 games with Baker Mayfield, we have a 4% target share and a 4% air share. That's not good. I mean, that is horrible. If you extrapolate this and kind of put it out over the course of the season, Moore's on pace for 102 targets. Hey, that's not bad. But 40 catches for less than 500 yards, that's not good. So until that starts to pick up, you cannot start DJ Moore, whether you want to or not. You just can't. It's just not happening. Maybe he goes off for a week and then maybe you start to earn a little bit of trust in him. But right now, I have trust issues with DJ Moore and Baker Mayfield. So that is not happening anytime soon. And finally, let's move over to the tight end position here. Major, give us a couple tight ends. One you're starting and one you're sitting here ahead of week number 4. And you know what? Throw a little bit of PPR Viper action there if you want to.
I'm not getting in between what y'all got going on. But I'm going to say Tyler Conklin against Pittsburgh, man. Conk is quietly averaging 8 targets per game, with last week putting up 84 yards on 8 receptions. With Zach Wilson looking like he's kind of ahead of schedule and due back soon, Joe Flacco is going to be playing for his life. So I think you're going to see a really good game out of Joe Flacco if he does get that start, so he can stay at QB1 in New York. My sit, sorry, Matt, got to do it to you, but Darren Waller, man, versus Denver. Gone are the days of Waller getting those 19 targets in a game and all that good stuff he used to have back in the day. Last week, Waller only had one. Last week, he had one of his worst games, posting 3 receptions for 22 yards. That doesn't even sound like anything possible for Waller. But it's not just Waller that's having a hard time, and it's the whole Raiders offense. So maybe that's part of the reason. But, I'm going to hold off until they figure that out. And this week won't be any easier going against Denver's 4th-ranked secondary. So you gotta like sit. Sometimes it's hard to sit those like star players, but like Matt said, you gotta kind of wait and see what some of this stuff kind of plays out, especially with the Raiders and the struggles they're having in that offense.
Couple quick ones here. Tyler Conklin, quietly one of the top, I think, 7 tight ends right now in fantasy with what he's been able to do. Now, I'm not gonna say he's not quite come out of the ashes like Gerald Everett's been able to do, because we did see Tyler Conklin produce with Minnesota last season in relief of Irv Smith. But, I mean, finishing in the top 10, it'd be quite the feat for Tyler Conklin. Right now, you got to ride the hot hand there in New York. As far as Waller the Baller is concerned there, I mean, stats don't tell the entire story when it comes to Waller. He had 2 touchdowns go off his hands, 2 passes in the end zone. One got intercepted off his hands, dropped right into the opponent's lap there. And the other, he just completely missed it. So there's 2 touchdowns that he possibly could have had. But, I mean, there's something there. If you're Waller doesn't drop passes, and now we're seeing 2 of them last week. There's something else that's not quite there. Maybe the confidence, I don't know. I can't speak for him. But the opportunity was there. He had 2 touchdowns in his hand. He just couldn't pull it in. So,
Matt, are we playing spades? Or are we playing like football? Like, we can't have possibles and stuff out here, bro. Like, you either get a touchdown or you don't. Like, that's how the game works.
That's 100% it. I mean, I said
0 touchdowns,
the opportunity's
and 2
there,
possibles.
but at the end of the day, that's nothing. That is nothing. That he put up Jamar Chase type numbers last week. That's how bad he was. Now, Tera, give me a tight end and you're starting and one that you're sitting.
Spades. I am starting Albert O. I'm not doing it with confidence, but again, I'm staying on brand here that you play the tight end that is playing against Vegas, because they are awful against tight ends. Last week, my recommendation was all for Austin Hooper. That didn't really work out because apparently it was Jeff Swaim who was the one that was destined to get the touchdown against them. So if you combine the statistics of Austin Hooper and Jeff Swaim, all things considered, then yeah, hey, Yeah, that was correct. So this is going to qualify as me on doubling down on tight ends that play Vegas. So go with Alberto. Take that as you will.
You've been doing it like every week, right?
I am. That's just like it's the easiest way to generate content. Who are you streaming? Tight ends against Vegas.
I mean, it literally works out 85% of the time.
It does.
Except, I mean, pretty much Russell Wilson's pretty much killed Alberto this season so far. I mean,
it is
what it is.
Watch him come back to life, though. It's crazy.
If there is a game that he's going to come back to life, it is the Raiders. Let's be honest. That's what it is.
Yes. And then my sit of the week is going to be Tyler Higbee against San Francisco. Again, we kind of talked about, I think, Matt, maybe you mentioned San Francisco's defense. It's not the best sample size. One of you did. It's not the best sample size because the three teams that they have played are not particularly good. And they have not really integrated their tight ends very well. But San Francisco has been tough in theory against tight ends, and their defense is typically strong. So we have reason to believe that this should continue against the Rams. And the Rams have to find a way to work in Allen Robinson more to make their offense work as a whole. It's not working. It's not clicking. They have to do something. And I think that of all the people, Higbee could just kind of fall to the wayside this week. So that is my tight end sit of the week.
All right. I'm going to close this off with a couple more. I'm going to give you a start and a sit at the tight end position. And I'm going to start with David Njoku against Atlanta. Listen, two things you should never chase. One of them is fantasy points, and the other is waterfalls. Okay, and right here, I'm breaking one of those rules, and I'm going with Njoku here, who caught 9 of 10 targets there for 89 yards and a touchdown last week against Pittsburgh. So clearly, again, I'm in violation of said rule. I might even go chase some waterfalls anyway, just for fun. Now, Atlanta, they have allowed 9 receptions and 105 yards and a touchdown to the trio of Noah Fant, Colby Parkinson, and Will Dissly. And then the week before, I think it was 71 yards and 7 catches to Tyler Higbee. And then in week number 1, Jawan Johnson, he got in the action, 2 catches for 43 yards. So this is a very favorable matchup for David Njoku here. I know it's weird to try and chasing these points here, especially the tight end position, is probably going to backfire more often than not. But again, like playing the Raiders defense there at the tight end position, Atlanta is right there. I mean, they're, I think, the second friendliest defense to tight ends here so far early on in the season. And the guy I'm going to sit and maybe, I'm going to say Kyle Pitts versus Cleveland here. And I'm doing this for fantasy managers everywhere because I'm going to continue to bet against him. He's going to continue to prosper. I said sit him last week, 8 catches, 85 yards, turned out pretty good. This is what fantasy fans want, right? They want Kyle Pitts to get back into it. And if I can bet against Kyle Pitts, and people benefit from this, that, hey, you know what? I'm here to help the people. I'm a man of the people.
Hero. You're a hero.
Exactly. You know what? I may not be the hero people want, but I'm the hero people need. Now, okay. I may have overstepped there a little bit there. But when you look at the numbers here, there is an argument that Pitts probably could be sat again this week. Look, Pat Freiermuth there last week against Cleveland. He got 2 passes for 41 yards. That's not the greatest. And then you look at the matchup here. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he is made for matchups like this. This is why the Browns drafted him. They drafted him to go against Travis Kelce, to go against the Mark Andrews, to go against Kyle Pitts. He's that type of linebacker that can play in the coverage, especially against tight ends that are athletic. Now, bold prediction. I'm going to make another bold prediction because I feel like I'm in a bold prediction type mood. David Njoku scores more fantasy points in this game than Kyle Pitts will score in this game. Major, you want in on a pie on this one or no? You good?
I don't really do the pie thing, dude. I'm sorry, but I do want to. I don't know why I want to see Tera get the pie. Tera, do it for me. Like 2 pies. Tera's in. Tera's in.
I will buy a pie. There is a pie store.
You got 2 sons.
Here.
Let them both smash them in your face.
No, I will bring it on camera and I will gently place my nose in the pie, and that will be the extent of the pie.
I already love it. That she's already admitting defeat. Already. We're not even at the games here this week. Monday Night Football literally just ended. She's already conceding.
Matt just recreated his unrealistic bold predictions from 2021. So I feel super confident that this will not be hit. I will not be getting a pie. Maybe I'll still buy a pie and I'll eat the pie while Matt pies his face.
Well, I feel pretty good about this. First off, if anyone's watching our show for the first time ever, if you go back to 2021, they're not wrong. I mean, I made some pretty outlandish, bold predictions that I think I hit on maybe 15% of the time. I mean, it wasn't very good. I mean, they were out there though. They were pretty out there predictions. They weren't like major, like
They weren't like major predictions. Put me in this. You two are doing your thing. Do not try to deflect, buddy. Take this heat right now.
It's not like major predictions like, well, the team that scores the most points I'm predicting is going to win this. It wasn't like those kind of predictions. It was out there. Now, tune in next week though. Hey, we want to say thank you for checking out the show.
Absolutely.
Head over to fantasypoints.com. Use promo code 22Vipers10. It's right there at the bottom of the screen. It's been flashing across the whole time, and you get yourself 10% off one of those subscriptions today. You can catch Tera just about everywhere right now, doing stuff all over the face. Fantasy Alarm, DFS stuff. I mean, Fantasy Pros, TikTok, you name it. That's where she's at. Major Caldwell, he's coming at you with Nick Script on Sunday mornings there over at Fantasy Points. You can catch me again on Fantasy Points as well. Friday nights with the Friday Night Hype Show. It's where I pound back like a big gulp of coffee, and then I talk football each and every week, which is probably something that's not going to happen because there's a good chance my heart will explode at some point on one of these shows live on TV.
Under on his heart exploding. We have that going too. So just in case. It's a player problem.
Whatever it is, take the under. Take the under because it'll come sooner than later. With that all being said, again, this has been another episode of the Vipercast here. This has been part 2. This has been our starts and sits. So make sure you are tuning into next week's starts and sits show when Tera takes a pie in the face, and I might even send an apple pie to Eli's mother here after Tyreek Hill lights him up for 200 yards receiving. We will see you next week. Take care now.
Good job.